have a look on these particular regions of Russia like Georgia, Turkey, Azerbaijan. So as required, we'll come back to this. So this is the Northern Caucasus region where lies Russian oil resources. Chechnya, these are the regions where Russians faces insurgency. So Chechnya, Dagestan and Ingushetia, these are their oil-rich region, but these are the regions where Russia faces Islamic insurgency. Fine, there is a lot of politics related to pipelines. I have noted down Nord Stream, it connects Germany and Russia, and US didn't want that Germany should take oil and gas from Russia. So Nord Stream is also a cause of conflict. Yamal pipeline, it is maybe for your general studies also important because it goes through Belarus and Belarus is in news. Blue Stream takes gas to Turkey via Black Sea, and South Stream again this is like Russian pipelines just have a South Stream is here, Blue Stream is connecting with Turkey. South Stream Russia wanted to develop. There has been problem with this Nord Stream and this Yamal pipelines. Fine. So what is happening in and around has to do with pipeline. Anyway, understanding Russia is not such an easy thing. You must be knowing about Winston Churchill, and Winston Churchill's quote on Russia is that Russia is a riddle wrapped in mystery inside an enigma. Fine. So it is difficult to understand Russia. Fine. So now have this background in mind and understand the Cold War. So let's go back to the Cold War. So let us see the evolution of the events, which is also important to understand. Fine. So you can study Cold War into different phases. So first of all, just understand Cold War is a term used to explain the relationship between US and Russia from the end of Second World War till the disintegration of USSR in 1991. So what were the major events which led to the Cold War? What were the major events which led to Cold War? Fine. So for that you have to go back to some major events during Second World War. Between First World War and the Second World War, the most important development has been the rise of fascist powers. For example, Mussolini, but the major person we can always say Hitler. And Hitler has announced his expansionist aims. Okay, so Hitler's foreign policy, the slogan was Lebensraum. Lebensraum. So Lebensraum means more living space for Germans. More living space for Germans. Okay, so basically Hitler, he ended democracy in Germany, and Hitler's expansionist plans make Hitler as enemies of European nations, and the next door neighbor of Germany is France. Okay, so Hitler's expansionist plans. Hitler during Cold War, Hitler during Second World War has entered into the pacts with Russia. It has entered into pacts with Japan. Okay, Russia as well as Japan. So Hitler entered into the agreement or non-aggression pact with Russia, and he entered into the neutrality pact with Japan. So Hitler was initially Hitler had a greater design on the France, but Hitler's policy is also known as blitzkrieg. In military sciences, etc. I may not have written the right spelling, you can check. Okay, blitzkrieg, fine. So sudden flashed attempts to capture, fine. So Hitler, in his blitzkriegs, Hitler did not follow the non-aggression pact which it had with Russia. And that is why you cannot trust, you cannot be complacent even if any country enters into any pact with you. For example, China has entered into the peace and tranquility agreement at border, but you cannot rely on China's words. Fine. So in a surprise attack, Hitler attacked Russia. Fine. And Hitler's biggest and the most bloodiest expedition during the Second World War was against Russia, fine, which is known as Operation Barbarossa. So after this surprise attack, Russia joined the side of the democratic countries, or Russia became allied. This led also to the idea of United Nations. So Russia joining hands with the Western countries was just a wartime compulsion. Fine, and this you can say this friendship was not to sustain for long, and the moment you can say Second World War ended, the Cold War had started. It is believed that, or it is often said that US has a this syndrome, means US need some enemy. Without an enemy they cannot survive. So after destroying Hitler, the next enemy became USSR. After destroying USSR, the next target became China. Fine, so they have that enemy syndrome. US needs an enemy, and maybe after defeating China they can target India also. Okay, so as far as US is concerned, USA's own statesman Henry Kissinger has held that it is bad to be USA's enemy, but it is worse to be USA's friend. Fine. So if you are entering into friendship of USA, maybe you will have to pay much higher cost. So it's also a message to Indian establishment. Also think before you act, and before it becomes too late. Remember the advice of Henry Kissinger, the most seasoned diplomat of USA, that it is bad to be USA's enemy, but it is worse to be USA's friend. Okay. So anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is that there were certain conditions during Second World War which provided the basis for the rise of Cold War. However, according to the scholars, there is no beginning and no end of Cold War. And if we want to understand in a conventional way that Cold War was a struggle between the two ideologies, we can also trace the origin of Cold War in 1917. What happened in 1917? Russian Revolution. Fine. And it is Russian Revolution was led by Lenin. So basically, because of Russian Revolution, communism was established in Russia. Fine. And communism is considered as expansionist. Communism in Russia means Russia has a expansionist plans. Okay. So I just discussed the geopolitical imperative of Russia to expand. So they need this or that ideology, this or that excuse to expand. The moment communist revolution took place in Russia, it was an alarming signal to the world that the next phase of Russian expansionism is going to start in the name of communism. And communism as an ideology is expansionist because it calls for proletarian. It calls for proletarian internationalism. So one of the clarion call of communism is workers of the world unite. So workers of the world unite means the rebel of the world unite and fight against your governments and come under the influence of Russians. Right? So Russians' next phase of expansion after Tsar Nicholas is when Lenin established communism. So for common man, communism is an ideology to uplift the situation of the poor, but for the politicians, they understand that it is a new word for Russian expansionism. So it has frightened the other countries. Right? So other countries of Europe, they combined or they tried to come together against Russian expansionist design, and if Russia is using communism, they have started using the word democracy. Right? So we have to protect democracy. This became the buzzword in the fight for the Western European nations. Now, during the Second World War, another threat emerged, and that was the threat of fascism. Fine. So Second World War was to protect democracy from communism and fascism, which were together projected as totalitarianisms. Fine. So the initial fight was between the democracy and these two have combined against, but the equations changed very fast during the war. So how and what has happened which led to the Cold War and the other important events we will discuss in the next